Shalom, shalom, Akim and Nakwath. This is your brother Azariah, and I want to start by giving all the praise, all the honor, and the glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahawashi, Yahweh being the true name of the Most High God, and doing so in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world knows as Jesus Christ, but we know the true name to be Yahawashi, and He is the Hamashiach. All right. I just want to kind of get into straight and forward, simple and sweet. We're going to get into Yahawashi talking to the Canaanite woman. All right, we're going to get into that and just kind of giving, validation that definitely is a Canaanite woman. We're going to use contextual, reference scriptures just to kind of use reading in its context to give you examples, right? We're going to use another conversation that Yahawashi had specifically with the Samaritan woman to point out without a shadow of a doubt that, when it comes to Matthew 15 and Mark 7, he was speaking to a Canaanite woman, an actual Canaanite woman. And it is important to get this right and to not just say she was an Israelite too, because, for one, this leaves the door open for when, you got brothers that say that, hey, brothers like to make everybody an Israelite. And that is a case of that really going on, but just kind of using context clues of the Bible to tell, because it can be confusing. You do have people, right? You have our people that have inhabited the land that they were in, and they were called as such. So Ruth the Moabitess being an example, her being in her own land, but she's called a Moabite. She's not being in her own land, being in the land of Moab, right? In the plains of Moab, her being there. And because she dwelt there, she's called that because of where she was from. You had other people, do the Uriah the Hittite, right? These are examples, just a few examples of our people that would be in different lands and called that. Simon the Canaanite. Okay. So there you go. You got them. So we just got to be an understanding, right? We might even get into that. What I'm saying? Just understanding the difference in terms of who's who, and right? Our people just going into different aspects, different lands, migrating to different places, traveling, whatever the case may be. All right. So we just want to get that understanding and clear that up. So let's go and start off with the book of Matthew, chapter 15, right? And we're going to go into it. And it reads, verse 21, Then Yahawashi went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. All right, so we see that Yahawashi did travel in the coast of Tyre, and this is something as, our people would walk on foot, go out to these areas. They travel out, they would still venture off. Yahawashi walked to the coast of Tyre. All right, so Yahawashi traveled out there. And you can just here's a little reference real quick. All right. So here's a little map right here. All right. Now we go, it's called, sickle of truth, right? Now let's go into the proclamation against Tyre and Sidon, which there are prophecies that dealing with the destruction of Tyre, but I just want to give kind of an idea just for this specific lesson, dealing with, you see the area, Galilee, right? Yahawashi would do his ministry around Galilee, Capernaum. Went into that on a previous lesson, right? And now we would see how from Kadasa, you go over to Tyre, which links into Zidon, Zidon, right? So obviously, this is kind of an aspect of look of what it would look like for him to travel, right? And like I said, again, her people would walk by foot, whatever the case to measure, right? They don't get on planes. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they had chariots, to take them over there, more like horses, whatnot. But a lot of times, the people would just walk. You know, so you see that he's going into the land where these people are, right? And so, boom. Obviously, it doesn't sound like a coincidence. Now, yes, while we do have our people that inhabit that land, we're going to go further in the conversation just to see further text to prove of how she really is a Canaanite woman. Okay. Behold, a woman of Canaan, right, came out the same coast. Again, I'm not even just using that alone, though it does say woman of Canaan. That alone doesn't in itself, by itself, doesn't prove that woman is truly a Canaanite woman. But we're using clues, right? So this is one line of evidence that we're going to use in the sense of saying, hey, this could fit. Now, it's not the end all be all, but it can be used as a clue right there. It's very significant. A woman of Canaan, right? So no, she is from the land of Canaan, where Yahawashi went to. He went to the coast of Tyre and Sidon. All right. So it's a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. Now here's where it really makes a difference, right? This is where it starts to add up. Then we start getting the equation, the answer to this equation here. Verse 23, but he answered her not a word, and his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she crieth after us. Say, send her away. Right? That's the first thing. Now the disciples even saying it, send her away. When do we see them do that to the people of Israel? And we're talking really in terms of just dealing with the Jews, right? Because right now they're not out preaching to the Gentiles, though they may run into people. Not saying they didn't run into people here and there, but they're really going forefront to the southern kingdom, right? Judah, predominantly Judah, and then you got Levi and Benjamin. All right. So disciples are just saying, if she cried, send her away. You wouldn't do that to a potential disciple now, would you? You know, verse 24, but he answered and said, I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Okay. So Yahawashi, that's really a cutter right there. He's telling her, I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Meaning this woman has nothing to do with this. He has nothing to do with this. I mean, she has nothing to do with this. She is not involved in the mix. Based on how the disciples are responding to her, and based on how Yahawashi is saying to her, I am not sent, but unto a lost sheep of the house of Israel. If she was of the sheep of the house, lost sheep of the house of Israel, Yahawashi couldn't say this to her. Because we're not even dividing it up into northern kingdom here. We're not even doing that. But I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Right? Because for one, both sides have to cleave onto Yahawashi. You reference Hosea 1 and 11, they'll appoint themselves one head. That's Yahawashi, bringing those two sticks together. Northern and southern kingdom of Israel. That's one. And two, even if he was trying to just say this was just the northern kingdom, he's saying he's not sent. He's not actually going out to there. That's what he had Paul do. He had Peter go out there, right? The apostles went out and taught to the Gentiles, right? So there was a time and place for that. And mind you, the Israelites behaving as with Gentile behavior. So this really is a cutter right here to we need not go further, but we will continue to read. Verse 25, then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. Right? Lord, help me. So she gave worship, telling him to help, begging, basically. Verse 26, but he answered and said, it's not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. Now, mind you, this is even worse. This is even worse. Now, mind you, it is not meet to take children's bread and to cast it to dogs. Now, mind you, he's saying this is the good bread, right? Man shall not eat of bread alone, but every word of the Most High God Yahweh, right? Now, this is the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. This is it could be taken very could be, if you're not in the right spirit, you can take this very much the wrong way. Heathen could take this very much the wrong way, right? If they're not willing to succumb to truth. Let's get into to cast it to dogs. Let's just show how egregious this could be. Exodus 22 and start at 12. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. If it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness and show. Hold on real quick. That's something that's not where I was looking at. That's not what I was looking at. Go down a little bit. Okay. Salaki is dropped down. Exodus 22 and 30. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it me. And ye shall be holy men unto me. Neither shall you eat any flesh that is torn of beast in the field. Ye shall cast it to the dogs. See that? Ye shall be holy men unto me. This would be the children of Israel, right? As Moses giving us this law, right? Ye shall be holy, set apart men unto me. Neither shall you eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. These beasts, killing each other, right? Ripping each other's flesh off their bone. He's saying, hey, y'all cannot eat that. Flesh torn off a beast in the field, you should not eat that. But you can go ahead and cast that to the dogs, though. Very. That shows you how low, the lowest of low, what Yahawashi is saying. And it's not saying anything wrong. This is what it is. So back to 26. But he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. He's saying, I should not catch the pearls on the swine. I should not give this to you. Right? You are likened unto a dog, is what he is saying to her. Verse 27. And she said, truth, Lord. Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Now look at that. She's acknowledging herself as a dog. She is going along with it. So Yahawashi's response, then Yahawashi answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. Her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Now people could use this and go on to say, well, look at the faith. The faith that she had is great. But it unto thee even as thou wilt. Right? This is her understanding her place, humbling herself, and impressing Yahawashi with that demeanor to the point he just had to go ahead and let me look out for her. I will go ahead and heal. Thy faith is great. This isn't a new concept. Stuff like this happens in the Bible. Hebrews 11. go right here. Hebrews 11 and 30. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. And that goes back to Genesis 12, which I will go ahead and bring out. Genesis 12 and 3. Start at 12, 2 actually. Might as well actually start from the top. Now Yahweh had said unto Abram, right, who would be Abraham, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great. Thou shalt be a blessing. I will bless them that bless thee, curse him that curseth thee. In thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So that's where it would happen. Most High can bless anybody. Yahawashi Mashiach can bless anybody. We can be, in fact, we can be a blessing on to others. All right. We can also be a blessing on to others as well. Let's see real quick right here. Isaiah 49:6, and he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. Will also give thee a light for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation to the end of the earth, which would be Israel, and a light to those other people, the Gentiles, so they may see, their eyes may be opened into what the truth is. And that's the light that is of Yahweh Bashem Yahawashi, that they may walk in the presence, right, and follow thy ways. Okay, the covenant's not on to them, but they still got to follow. They got to follow those who the covenant is for, those who ultimately are chosen. All right. So Yahawashi, being so impressed, he went ahead and blessed her. Went ahead and blessed her. Your faith has made you whole. You know, great is thy faith. So we see Rahab had faith. Was an example of that, because she knew who the God of the power was to Israel. Right? She heard about what happened, how the Egyptians got wiped out. Right? Basically exterminated, not even basically exterminated, right? On their way up. She's heard of that power. See? Now let's go to Mark chapter 7. All right. Let's go to Mark 7 and 24. And from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, entered into an house, and would have no man know it, but he could not be hid. For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, Syrophoenician by nation. She besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. It says a Syrophoenician by nation. All right. So we're dealing right here. This is by nation. Exalted palm, the name of a mixed nation, half Phoenicians and half Syrians. All right. By nation, kindred, offspring, family, stock, tribe, nation.
Strong's G 1085. Genos.
Nationality or descent from a particular people. This Gallus is dealing more so of the hood of nature aspect of family. This isn't like Goy, where you're actually dealing with a nation. In terms of, it could be a nation of people. An aggregate, this is the closest one, the aggregate of many individuals of the same nature, kind, or sort. So we're really dealing with the Tyree, so I don't really be dealing with those people. Canaanite such. All right. So by nation she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. Yahawashi said unto her, let the children first be filled. Right? Focus on our people. Let's focus on the nation of the house of Israel, right? For it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it onto dogs. So it's not changing on either account. Both Matthew and Mark got this. This isn't changing. She's saying he's calling her a dog. And she answered and said unto him, yes, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. And he said unto her, for saying this, go thy way. The devil is gone out of thy daughter. He said, and Yahawashi even said, for saying this. So there was a faith, right? Go thy faith made thee whole. Yahawashi surprise, right? He's also here it's saying, for this saying, go thy way. The devil is going out of thy daughter. And when she was come to her house, she found the devil gone out, and her daughter laid upon the bed. See that? Now, I've heard brothers say that the daughter may be an Israelite. We don't know that. We truly don't know. All we do know at the same time is that Yahawashi gave a blessing to a non-Israelite woman. I again repeat, Yahawashi gave his blessing to a non-Israelite woman. All right, and that's fine. That doesn't mean she's receiving the gift and the promises. We know that pertains to Israel. But we do know, right, she got healed. Again, bless those who bless thee, curse those who curse thee. And Yahawashi said because she did this, this is why she's being blessed. Now, if we look at that type of conversation, right, being that this person's in the land of Tyre and Zidon, we add in, like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that by the land, but we're coupling all these context clues. All right. And it's also too, mind you, not a foreign thing for heathen people to give aid to Israel, or for Israel to even do the same, likewise to give aid to non-Israelite, right, people, do trade, right? Let's go to the book of First Chronicles, chapter 14 and verse 1. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David and timber of cedars with masons and carpenters to build him an house, right? And David perceived that Yahweh had confirmed him king over Israel, for his kingdom was lifted up on high because of his people Israel. See that? That didn't stop anything, right? The king of Tyre sent messengers to David and timber setters with masons and carpenters to build him a house. So he did him a solid, right? These people, right? You know, Canaanites, there were people that would have people of Tyre would do trade. Israelites with, you know, cedars and, you know, people, carpenters would help. He would send those people out to help Israel in their building and trade and whatnot. So that would transpire. That is a thing that took place. That did happen. So it's not foreign, you know, to see people do business with each other of other nations. We do it today in this current day time frame. So it's not a foreign concept to see, you know, such things and such like this, right? Again, going into the whole aspect of bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. That's what it goes into. Now, even more so, you know, the curse aspect, we're under the grace of Yahawashi, so it tells us not to, basically in the sense of not fight fire with fire, but, you know, bless those who persecute you, right? So anyway, it's another topic. But now let's go and compare in the book of John, chapter 4 and verse 7. Let's compare the conversation that Yahawashi had with the Canaanite woman versus this Samaritan woman. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahawashi saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were going away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, ask of drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. So we know this was due to the if you will, people of Samaria being cut off. All right, let's go right here real quick. This book of Isaiah, chapter 10. And let's start with verse 10. As my hand have found the kingdoms of the idols, and whose graven images did excel them of Jerusalem and of Samaria, shall I not, as I have done unto Samaria and her idols, so do to Jerusalem and her idols? Right? So this is Samaria, which were people, right, that be in captivity or being held captive, predominantly by Assyria, right? Verse 12, wherefore it shall come to pass that when the Lord hath performed his whole work upon Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Assyria and the glory of his high looks. All right. So you see the Most High would deal with Assyria, of course, because he always would go through the worst. But of course, the Most High is always gonna, because we disobey, right? And then we go through it, and he sees us too much, and eventually that captivity comes to an end. And this being the longest, right here in this Babylonian captivity. So just a little bit of small context on John 4 dealing with the woman of Samaria, right? And she is, because it's the same run, right? Woman of Samaria, just like we looked at the Canaanite woman, to see woman of Canaan, or of Tyre. Let me go back. Just forgot it, just like that. Mark 7. Right. It's a Syrophoenician nation. And then let's go to Matthew then. Matthew 15. Right? A woman of Canaan. There we go. A woman of Canaan. So we see that, and that's why we're just using the context clues that we have to make a final decision right there. So, right, let's keep reading. Verse, we see how they have no dealings with him, right? And there was a cutoff of the people. Verse 10, Yahawashi answered and said unto her, if thou knowest the gift of God, Yahweh, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Yahawashi answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. You see that? So this is what it is right here. And I'm going to jump down to verse 20. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is a place where men ought to worship. See this? Because she's going into it saying, she's constantly saying our fathers. You don't hear these nations when they are at their humble state, right? They never try to include themselves in the sense of, oh, the our fathers, our God. You see how our people and the other nations try to lump themselves in today. They'll try to lump themselves in with Abraham and Isaac because of these false narratives teaching that they can become an Israelite, spiritually, by taking heed to the commands. But that's never been so. In fact, you see the other nations will acknowledge that the Most High God is their God, right? Their fathers are their fathers. Even if they try to include themselves in, they'll understand that difference, right? Now, verse 21, Yahawashi saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. See that? And because salvation is going to come through the line of who? It's going to come through the line of Judah. Yahawashi is Judah, from the tribe of Judah, right? It said a scepter, in reference in Genesis 49, a scepter shall not depart from Judah. That's Yahawashi holding the kingsmanship. It will not depart from Yahawashi Hamashiach. It's an everlasting kingdom under him. So that's where it starts. So we see the difference in how Yahawashi is talking to her, right? When he tells her to go get her husband, granted, of course he, because of the activity she did, and that proves even furthermore that she's an Israelite by really our fathers. She's taken to the ways of the heathen, by having multiple partners like that, which is unlawful to do as such. But this is why Yahawashi is telling her, hey, look, they shall come drink of this water, him, that living water, the well, right? The well of water springing into everlasting life. So she can repent and be whole, just like anyone else. Like how when Yahawashi was saying, to the Pharisees, the harlot shall enter into the kingdom before you, because they're going to repent and turn to the wells of everlasting life. Those that do will be converted, especially in this time frame now, right? So the conversation is different, and you see clearly that's a Canaanite that does have a level of faith and belief, and that's fine, because that happens in the scriptures. We just got the one dealing with Rahab. That happens. Salvation is still of salvation, like he said, is of the Jews, and then would be on to the promises and the covenants would be given to who? The God gives that to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? The Israelites, and more specifically, the chosen within that lineage. So I hope this was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahawashi. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, that are learning and or teaching this gospel in truth and sincerity. Till next time, Yahweh willing. Shalom.